Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System, and I work at the Nixon branch in Jacksonville, and this is the Crafting with Opal program that I do on Thursday nights at 7. Tonight I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple fleece neck warmer by sewing it. It's just one that you sew with some fleece material. And this should be a fairly quick project to do. Depending on what size that you need it to be, you'll cut out like a rectangle, and I'm going to grab my measurements here. If you want to get the directions, and it's not really a pattern necessarily, but it tells you what dimensions to cut the fabric out at, depending on what size you want. For the adult, you'll need a 25-inch by 9-inch piece of fabric, and you'll need 2 of them. One it's a reversible one, so you can reverse it if you want to. And then they also have dimensions for, let's see, a child and a toddler. So the one I'm doing tonight will be for an adult or a teen. And that's what we're doing tonight, and we gave out supplies for this and directions if you wanted to follow along. Well, hey Marion, hadn't seen you in a while. Good to see you. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I already pre-cut my fabric out because that part's fairly easy to do. I was using black fabric as one of my pieces, and some Nightmare Before Christmas fabric for the other piece. And since it's a dark fabric, you can't really mark on it as easily for it to show up. Let's see, I'm going to need that next week. Yeah, it's definitely going to be cold next week, yeah, so we'll need it for sure. If you want these directions for this, I'd be happy to give them to you. If you want to contact me at the library, I can either email it to you, or you can come by and pick up a copy of it. Just let me know if you'd like to have it. You can call the library at 501-457-5038 and just ask for Opal, and you can leave me a message if I'm not available, and you could leave your email address even, and I would just email it to you if you want. So that's what we're going to do tonight. It's, like I said, it's going to be a fairly simple one to do. I'm going to reverse the camera so you can see what I've got. That's all my painting stuff there, but here's the fabric I cut out already. You'll need 2 pieces, and this is 25 by 9. And I've got 2 of them, and the way I cut mine out, since like I said, if it's black fabric you can't really mark on it easily where it could be seen, so what I did was I took my rotary cutter and one of my measuring things, I'm trying to think, ruler, I'm always having trouble remember to call it a ruler, but anyway, I used one of these. Actually that wasn't quite long enough. It's only 24 inches. I needed another inch. So I have this metal yardstick that I used instead, and it worked really well. Hey, Jonna. Let's see. Oh, well, thank you, Jonna. So just use something like that. That would be great on this type of fabric, too, as far as cutting it out. Because even though this one was black, say you had white fleece fabric instead, it's kind of hard to mark fabric that's a fleece material because of the fuzziness of it. So I would think it would be probably easier to use one of these and a rotary cutter for it also. And just be sure to have a mat whenever you're cutting it. And like I said, you just need to cut out 2 pieces and for the adult size. And that's going to be 25 inches by 9 inches. And then be sure when you're cutting it out, this is very important, that your fabric stretches in this direction. You don't want it to stretch in this direction. So when you're picking up your fabric to cut it out, find out what direction it stretches first. And you want it to stretch in the longer direction. And be sure it's on both pieces. because that's going to have to stretch around your head whenever you're putting it over your head. So once you get that done and you get it cut out, you're going to lay your right sides together, and you can kind of tell with this. It's kind of, well, it's more apparent to me than it is on the camera, because when I'm looking on the camera it doesn't look as fuzzy. But this side is kind of blurry looking to me compared to this side. This side is a lot clearer looking, so that's how I know that this is the right side. For this one, this is kind of the fuzzier, softer side, and this side is smooth. If you prefer to have the smooth side facing out, there's no reason why you couldn't have it facing out if you want. But I would prefer to have the fuzzy, softer side. So that's my right side and this is my right side, and we want them facing each other. So you're going to line them up. I cut one of these out first, the black one, and then I kind of laid it on top of my other fabric whenever I was trying to measure it out. You have to do a lot of smoothing to the fabric to make sure it's going to lay properly. So what I mean by smoothing is you're just moving your hands over it to kind of move it around a little bit. And since it is a fleece material, it will stretch a little bit while you're trying to cut it out. So try to get it as smoothed out as possible and straight on your fabric. I've moved mine around a lot. It wasn't lined up pretty good, but now it's kind of been shifting on me. And you may find when you start smoothing it out that one may have ended up longer than the other, which I think that might have happened with this one, possibly. Let's see. No. Once I started smoothing it, the black one started lining back up. Okay. So, once you've got your pieces lined up, what we're going to end up doing is sewing the top edges, not the ends, but the long top edges. We're going to sew them. So I'm going to pin my fabric to hold it together while I'm sewing it. Once I've got it lined up, I want to make sure that the edges are lined up properly. And if you have one that sticks up a little bit further than the other, that's okay. I would make sure that if one was slightly bigger than the other, to have that one on the bottom, so you can see when you're sewing that one's a little bit longer, so you can make sure that you're actually grabbing both pieces of fabric. And it looks like I kind of left a little bit of an edge on that one, so I'm going to have it facing this direction when I'm sewing it. And you're going to sew these edges with a a zigzag stitch. So, because that's a stretchy type stitch. So you want to make sure that that's how you do that. Let's see. I didn't quite get this one edge over here that you can't see lined up properly, so I'm going to repin it. Alright, so you just want to pin those edges. And if you want to pin the ends, like each of one of these ends, just to keep your fabric from moving, that's actually probably not a bad idea. Even though we're not going to be sewing that part yet. So let's get these pinned. I figured most of you know how to cut fabric, so I decided not to cut mine while I was doing this program. Let's see. Seems like my fabric is kind of doing a weird thing on this side where it's not quite laying flat for me. And I think the black fabric I've got is a little bit thicker than the Nightmare Before Christmas fabric. It feels a little bit thicker. So I feel like I got the Nightmare Before Christmas one a little bit different there, but it seems to be doing okay. Okay. Alright. So once you've got that, and I got dog hair on that. I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to make sure that we got our stitches set up properly. The last time I used my machine, I had it set up for a zigzag stitch. And that was from that hat that I did. And so I already know, I went ahead and did a test thing to make sure that it still was sewing the way I wanted it to sew. Because I changed out my thread even, so I wanted to make sure it was doing that. So just a regular zigzag stitch about like that to set on your sewing machine. You also want to get a needle and some black, well, whatever color thread that coordinates with whatever you're making, because you may use a different color than me. I did black, so I got that ready because at the very end we're going to have to hand sew a hole. So I went ahead and got that ready. I'm going to move this over to my sewing machine. Now I'm looking at the bottom there, but I got to tilt it up and move this down. Alright, so get all of that out of the way. And got to move the way there. Sorry about trying to get all of this situated. I want y'all to be able to see what I'm doing here. I'm going to have to move this down just a tad bit more and probably tilt it. There we go. Alright, and like I said, you want to have yours set to a zigzag stitch. Everyone's sewing machine is going to be a little bit different. Mine has pictures on up here showing you the different stitches. Mine's a number 3. So on the dial here, there's my indicator. Whoops, it's kind of hard. So I have my 3 on here lined up. This right here is just has to do with the length of the stitch, and I have it on a 2. The width of the stitch is up here, and I've got it on a 3. So you'll play with that a little bit, depending on how you want your zigzag stitch to look. That's what I did ahead of time with mine, and this is the example I did. I didn't want a really big zigzag stitch, so I just wanted one that was not quite so tall, that was a little bit shorter, and a little more bunched together, and so that's why I have my settings set the way I do, because I kind of wanted mine to look like that. Alrighty, and so we're going to be just sewing the edges, the long edge of this. So I'm going to get this, and you're going to do on the seam, it's going to be a 3/8 of an inch. I usually do a 1/4 of an inch, which is lined up with the edge of my sewing foot. So if I move it over to this first mark, that's going to get me my 3/8 of an inch seam. So I'm going to start with that in the, I'm going to have to scoot up here. How am I going to scoot without hitting the camera? Let's see here. Alright, sometimes maneuvering in here with all this stuff is kind of hard. Alright, I'm going to initially start with a reverse to kind of get this stuck good. Alright, let's see, I think my fabric got kind of hung up a little bit, so I'm trying to make sure it's got... Okay, and like I said, I have it lined up with this first little line on the edge here to get a 3/8 of an inch seam on this. So we're going to keep that lined up there. And you're letting the machine pull the fabric through, you're not pushing it through. So let it pull it through. And you're just guiding your fabric. I feel like mine's kind of trying to get hung up a little bit. Being the type of fabric it is, it's gonna kind of want to pull or stick. And I'm just letting it pull it through. Pull the other needle out. Every time I feel like my fabric's being tugged on, I readjust it a little bit, because I've got a fabric organizer hanging off the side of my table here, and so it's trying to cling to it and pull on it, so that's why I'm having to readjust my fabric, because it's wanting to stick to that fabric organizer that I have on the side here. Alrighty. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this lined up with more with this black fabric than that one that's a little bit longer that's underneath. I didn't mean to cut it like that, but as long as I'm getting both pieces of fabric, we're okay. Okay, I'm almost to the end. Okay, pull that one out. And we're going to back up to secure it. All right, so that's one edge. And we're going to do the other one. Okay, so I'm going to just turn this around and line it up with the other long edge. Kind of get that out of the way. And this one sticks out further too, so I'm trying to line the top fabric up with that, so it'll be more adjusted, because the bottom piece was just a tad bit bigger than the top. And I'm going to back up. Okay, so we're just going to let it pull the fabric through. I'll trim up the fabric once I get it sewn, so it won't be too bulky. Let's see. Keep having to readjust my fabric so it doesn't get hung up, because you want the machine to do all the pulling, but you don't want it to pull and stretch the fabric while it's sewing it though. Because remember, I told you the long ways was the direction that your fabric needed to stretch, and you don't want to stretch it while it's actually being sewn. Because if you let it get stretched while it was being sewn, then it would bunch up on you. Well, let's make sure that this is all up here. And this would be a good beginner's project, really. Kind of like the hat we did. Almost done. I guess really the hardest part is whenever we get to put the two pieces together and at the other end. Looks like I will have to do a little bit of trimming to this. Alright, so I'm going to get my scissors ready. I'm going to cut off these excess threads while I see them here. Okay, and I'm going to take this out. Alrighty, and then I'm going to try to move this around where y'all can see me working on this. I have to move my camera just a little bit, except it's going to lean too far down. Alright, so I'm going to take these other little pins out that I had to kind of hold the... Alright, so I'm going to look and see... I've got my threads here. And my fabric looks like it needs to be trimmed up just a little bit. And on the very ends, let's see. See, that one was longer, ended up being longer than the others, so I'm going to trim off that. Alrighty. And my other end was kind of like that too. So I'm going to cut to make it the same. Alright. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else that that wasn't that much longer. Alright, so now we got our two pieces sewn together with the right sides facing each other. So for the next step, we're going to kind of start turning it right, not really right side out, but it's going to be kind of strange here. We want to pull one end to the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck it inwards, which seems kind of weird, the other direction. So I'm going to pull one end towards the other end. We still have the wrong sides facing outwards. Alright, so I'm pulling one in towards the other one on the inside. So now it's partially turned the other direction where I got both ends together. And what I'm going to do is, these are the right sides. They're on the inside. And I'm going to match up my seams. And this is pretty obvious with this one because one's black and one's got a lot of white. So I'm going to get my pins again. And I'm going to make sure that I pin it where the seams are. And I kind of want to open up my seams and lay them flat also. Oh, it's sticking to my hand there. And I'm going to pin, because you really want these seams to be lined up. I'm starting with them because that's really important. I want to turn to my other side where my other seams are at. And I want to line them up too, where they're laying flat also. And And I'm pinning them from the top. Making sure they're laying straight on top of each other. Okay, so there's my other seam. Alright, so once you've got them, you can do kind of straighten out the other sides, and you're going to pin them together too. But you want to line up the fabric, and you're not going to sew all of this together because you have to turn it right side out. So I'm going to leave a hole on the side that's the black fabric. So I'm going to pin, let's see, I think I want to use the yellow for my start and stop points of where I'm going to leave my hole. So keep your fabric nice and lined up. Trying to keep them straight while I'm pinning them. This fuzzy material tends not to want to do that. So I'm going to turn it a little bit like that to kind of make it work with for me. It seemed like when I had it the other direction it kept wanting to move. And I'm going to stick with the pink and the purple needles because I'm actually going to sew this closed. But on this other side, that's the black fabric, I'm going to have to leave an opening. So I'm going to use purple, or I guess this is pink. And then I need a place to mark where I'm going to leave my hole. So I'm going to leave, and I'm trying to remember how much of a hole did they say to leave. That's recommended. Usually a couple of inches. They actually don't say. I would say at least 2 inches, if not more, to leave a hole to pull it through. You want it to be able to, yeah, that's, trying to think if I need to make that a little bit bigger. I might, because you're going to be pulling all your fabric through. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. And that's almost, not quite 3 inches, I don't think, but I believe everything should pull through that. You can't even, I don't even know if y'all can see it because this is black fabric. It's hard to see with the lighting, but yeah, you can see my fingers are in there. So you can leave at least a big enough hole to turn it right side out. So now that I've got that, I'm going to take this part off of my machine. Because with the way we're going to be sewing is almost like sewing a sleeve, and it's going to be a small opening that we're sewing, so you want to make sure that your fabric will wrap around the end of your machine. So I'm going to fit this over. Oh, and that just pulled my pin loose. That's such a tight fit. Let's try that again. I'm going to back up just a little bit so y'all can see a little bit better on what I'm doing here. So I'm going to, oh wow, my pins are trying to come out while I'm doing this. Alright, so fit that under. You're just fitting it onto the end of your machine. Okay, I'm going to scoot in. And if you want to, this stitch is not necessarily a stitch that needs to stretch. So if you want to switch your stitch setting to a straight stitch, that'll be fine because this stitch will not need to stretch. So I'm going to slide this into, and you want to do about the same, about a 3/8 of an inch seam also. It's because of this fabric being so bulky, and I want to make sure, or yeah, the type of fabric that it is. Okay, you want to make sure both of them are there. All right, and I'm going to start, actually, I'm going to move mine over, let's see, how far, about, yeah, I'll move it over there. Okay, so I'm going to start with it in the fabric. Oh, and I just realized I'm actually going to sew over where my hole's supposed to go. So hold on. I was paying attention to other things. Let me pull the threads out of my fabric here. I should have started on the second yellow needle. Yep. So I would have sewn right over the area that I wanted to leave open. That would not have worked. So I'm glad I realized that before I got started. Okay. All right, now I can get started. And we're going to start with it in the fabric. And I'm going to sew forward a couple of stitches and then I'll back up. Okay. And you'll have to be careful about making sure that this feeds through good on your machine too. It's thick fabric, so it's not going to pull it through quite as good. And I just realized too, I need to turn my length, my stitch length up to 4. That's the longest length on my machine because this is really thick fabric. I need it to be a little bit longer. Yeah, now it's moving through better. Okay, so I'm going to remove this first one. And get the second one out of the way. And you're going to have to adjust your fabric a lot when you're sewing over this area. And it might have a little bit of trouble with this seam area, so I'm going to get a hold of it from the other side and help pull it through a little bit. There we go. Once it got through that thick area, it went through fine. Just had to give it a little bit of a help there. You want to keep shifting it, especially the fabric that's underneath the machine. You want to keep helping it move along because it's going to want to get hung up underneath there if you don't. You're just kind of keeping it from getting wrinkled while it's under there. And I'm just guiding it. I'm not pushing it through. It's pulling it through for me, so. And I'm just kind of picking it up and helping it move along. And I'm getting close to the really thick area again. So I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to keep my hand on this side to help. If it gets a little hung up, I'll help pull it through if it needs it from the other side. Alright, so I'm going to lift that up just a tiny bit and make sure, did I put it back down? Okay, good. There we go. Just getting over the hump sometimes because it's so thick. Alright, so I'm back to my other yellow pin, so I'm going to see here how big of a hole I've got because I found my other spot where I started. I'm going to go forward just a little bit more, and now I'm going to back up. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to take it off. I backed it up and reinforce that stitch. I'm going to take this off, and we'll hand stitch the rest of it. So I'm going to cut off my excess threads, get my little scissors. And we'll turn it right side out before we hand sew it. Okay, so here's my hole. It's going to be a little less obvious here, but we're going to pull everything through the hole that I left. you're going to have to help push it through. So you get it all the way. And there we go. It's pretty much done. And this is the outside of mine. And you just pull it to all the seams are kind of flat. I like that. I like the black on the inside. The main reason I picked black fleece for the inside of mine is I didn't want white because I noticed on my neck warmers that my makeup gets on it, and if I used white, then the white would really show up on the white fabric, and I knew black wouldn't show up as bad. Okay, so here's my hole right here that I left to turn it right side out. So to sew this closed, I've got a needle and thread, and let me see if I can find the end of it. Okay, and you're just going to I'm going to start on the inside area of where it's actually sewn already and come up that way. And since this is going to be on the inside of mine, it's not going to really be noticeable no matter what kind of stitching I do. I'm going to turn this around because I'm right-handed. And but I'm going to do kind of it's what you call an invisible stitch, which it's really not going to be noticeable even if you do a different type of stitch with the what I've got. Is I'm picking up on one side and pulling it through, and then I'm coming directly over on the other side and picking up fabric, and I'm staying on the seam edge of it. Let's see, I'm wondering if there's any way I could get more light where y'all can see what I'm doing, because this black thread and the black fabric, it's just, let's see. I wonder if I could change the lighting. There's different types of, there's that. I don't know that that's any better than what I was doing, but I changed, it's kind of a yellow, it looks like a yellow light to me, so I don't know if that was helpful or not. It makes it easier for me to see, but I can't tell if y'all can see. But I'm on this side of my fabric, and I'm going to jump over to the opposite side and just pick up a little bit of the fabric on the opposite side. And with this fabric, you don't want to pull real tight because it is stretchy, but you're just grabbing a little bit of fabric from each side each time and pulling it through. And I'm not doing a very big stitch there, about 1/4 of an inch. Let's see, my thread is trying to, there we go. Trying to get that back. So I'm just jumping to each side of it and just picking up a little bit of fabric on each side, and I'm staying right along the edge where the seam is. And just kind of pulling it tight a little bit. One of my dogs is, she's putting her legs on my leg trying to get my attention. She's a little chihuahua. Oh, and that didn't quite work. For some reason my thread, one is trying to pull and then the other one's not. There we go. Alright, so, and you just continue across that way, just picking up a little bit of fabric on the very edge of it, and just kind of pulling it somewhat tight, but not real tight, because if you pull it really tight, then you'll have bunching of your fabric. And then I've almost got it. And then I'm going to show you real quick what we'll be doing next week. Next week will be a Valentine's craft. The library picked up some neat wooden Valentine's signs, and I've got one of them with me. There's two different kinds. One just says love, and it's a wooden sign that you can paint as decoration that you can hang on your wall. The other one is kind of cute. It's I've got an example of it here. I'll show you in just a moment. And it says I love you, and it actually lights up. It's quite cute. Alright, so I got all the way to the end, and I'm just going to kind of knot it, and then I'm going to hide it. I'm going to sew into it and come out on another side there, and then just tighten it, and then tighten it enough that I could just clip it, and then it's on the inside. So you probably can't see it because it's all black. So that's the neck warmer. And like I said, if you wanted to try that out, I've got the directions I can give you. I can email them to you, or print. I got printed versions I can give you if you wanted to come to the library. And there's my neck warmer. And let me grab real quick the project for next week. Next week. I've already kind of painted it, started painting it a little bit to kind of show y'all how it's going to work. This is the sign that I've got. It's I guess it's something you can kind of sit up on your countertop or something. I don't think you can hang it, but I've painted the back side of it, and that's how I'm going to paint the top. I'm going to do purple on the middle and then white on the edges. I would recommend, if you get one, to paint the entire bottom edge white, and that's what I was going to do initially with this one, and then when I did the top I was going to do the purple and then the white edge, but I decided to do it this way on the bottom so I could test it out to see how it would work when I do the top. So that's why mine's like that. But I'll let you choose what color paint you want. But this one's got a light that you can turn on. And let's see, I don't know how visible. It does different colors on the light on the inside. It changes. But it's pretty cute. So you'll get to choose between this one that you want to paint, or the sign that just says love. And you're going to use both, or you can use both techniques on both of them, where we do two colors for it. And I'll have pink and red and white and purple paint to choose from, so you'll get to pick what two colors that you want to do. And I have a post-it note telling me the other stuff we're going to do, but that's next week on the 11th. And the following week on the 18th, let's see here, I've got examples of it too. It's where you're going to take fabric, this is actually fabric, that we're going to put melt beeswax, where it can turn into sealable fabric that you can use instead of saran wrap, and that's what this is. I've got a melted beeswax onto the fabric, and then you can use it to seal up your bowls with it. You can make different sizes of the fabric depending on whatever, bowls that you have or containers you want to use. And I thought this would be great for my dogs, because one of them, she gets picky about her food and I have to refrigerate it, and so this way I don't have to use a lot of saran wrap over and over again and throwing it away, so I can use that. I thought that was really neat. I've seen that online where you could make your own, and they sell, if you buy this made this way, it's pretty expensive, but all you need is some 100% cotton fabric and beeswax, some parchment paper, and an iron. It's pretty easy to make. And then the following week, I'm going to show you how to make, let's see here. I think I got a picture. I haven't made it yet, but it's a travel sewing kit. It's actually, when you fold it up, let's see, it's like a triangle shape. Whenever you, well, that's not completely folded up, but this flap comes over and it snaps shut. But anyway, I'll show you how to make one of those on the last week of this month. And then next month, I'm still trying to work out everything for next month, but I think we'll have possibly a paint-along, and the paint-along is probably going to go along with, it's going to be like a superhero thing, because the first week in March is Will Eisner week, and they were asking us to try to do some programs that went along with Will Eisner. And of course, he's someone that has to do with comic books and stuff. So if you're not a comic book person, you wouldn't have a clue who he is. But anyway, I was thinking of doing a paint along of just the top part of Spider-Man. So that might be the first week in March. The second week in March, I was planning on doing a simple granny square on how to do that. Oh, I guess I could just change my camera around where you can see me. And there's going to be a different program that my boss is going to do on the, I guess it'll be like spring break week, that she's doing with the high school to help students figure out what they're going to do next after they graduate from high school. So that, I won't be doing a crafting program that week. I really don't know if that's spring break week or not, but it might be. But it's the third week in March. And then the last week in March, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I'm trying to find a good watercolor to do a paint along with on that one. I'm hoping that'll work out. I haven't found a good one yet, but that's my plans. So that's it for tonight, and be sure to follow me next week and call tomorrow to the library to sign up, because I have very limited supplies of these to hand out. You can get this one or the other one that just says love. That's a sign that you hang on your wall, that you can sign up for supplies for those. Be sure to call tomorrow. You have until Tuesday, the end of Tuesday next week, to sign up for those, or if I've already run out of supplies, then that's it. But so be sure to call us tomorrow, and then the phone number there is 501-457-5038, and just tell them you want to sign up for the Valentine's Day paint along, okay? See y'all next week. Bye!